We are live. Welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast. I am your host, Chris Kirkwood, screen name Kirk D's, here with my regular colleagues, Killer B2482, Brett Hartfiel, and then Tyler Tamboline, Toe Tag, and Tambo. We're back for week 9. I had the worst freaking week of the season last week for me.
Let it out.
But anyways, I'm glad. I know Brett did well. Hear how Tambo did, but yeah. So how are you guys doing?
Good, man. You had the week last week. Feels like everything that I'm touching is going well over here. So I think I'm gonna just pass the baton off to Tambo this next week, so he can start crushing. No, it was a good week. I mean, I had a lot of just pivots, and normally pivots are kind of lower projected guys that you're just getting off a chalk, right? And you're doing it because you're not projecting very well, whether that be in cash or tournaments. And most of my pivots, there was plus 40 pivots out there, plus 60 point pivots that I made. So I went from being what I thought was going to be a bottom third result to like a top 10% result in quite a few spots. Pretty heavy on Mahomes too, so that was good. But I mean, the DJ Dallas, the going up from Jimmy G to Russ and getting on to DK over Lockett was kind of the key for me in the 3 o'clock windows. So Tambo, how'd you end up this past week?
Yeah, man, pass that baton. That'd be perfect, because it was a lot of good calls, but just didn't come together. And the biggest issue last week was if you didn't have enough Dalvin Cook, then you were in a lot of trouble, right? That was the highest scoring player on the slate. You needed him. I had a bunch of lineups with Mahomes. I was all over Russ with DK, and I said all week, DK over Lockett. It's going to go back to him. It's going to swing back. So lots of great lineups that I'm used to golf and looking for 6 out of 6 lineups. I said last week was a lot of 8 out of 9 lineups or 7 out of 9 lineups. We were just missing that key piece. Unfortunately, that piece was worth 55 DK points or whatever it was that he put up. So quite the week overall, but not exactly what I was looking for. And now we get to go into another one. So week 9 is the lucky week coming up.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, those 2 weeks were, those 2 weeks were so different though. I mean, last week it was just very low scoring week, whereas the week before it's all chalk hits, and it's just, 210 in your cashing, right? Or whatever the window was is 192. This week it was a very 140-ish, 150-ish in your cash in tournaments. So interesting dynamic between back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. I started off the day with a nice upload error. Basically, I had all my groups disabled, and I didn't realize it when I did my last crunch of lineups. And so I right off the bat, when Mecole Hardman had the touchdown, I was like, sweet, I know I got a bunch of him. Let me check and look at the lineups, and then all of a sudden it's coming back with Jeff Smith. And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't have Jeff Smith in my groups. And then I realized, I realized what happened. So I was like, all my settings were just eliminated. So that was a disaster. And then I'm just the fish who had Jimmy G everywhere. I got a little too confident in Jimmy G. However, I have found the world's greatest gambling technique. We have a guy in one of my chats that is the all-time biggest mush. His name is Luke Gowans, his Vert, and he is priceless. So basically, we have harnessed the powers of this guy to just pick loser after loser and
go the opposite side.
I've been driving to New Hampshire and hammering games opposite of what he says, and we are raking. So my buddy Jared, at the 1324 on Twitter, he keeps an eye on him, sends him pizza to make sure everything he's eating well, whatever he needs. We keep this guy well fed.
You can certainly afford to keep him well fed.
Yeah, no, we've got eyes on him at all times now at this point. This guy is too powerful. So that's been great. But we are here for week 9, 11 games. COVID popping up everywhere. I mean, what a game that was the other night with San Fran, Green Bay last night. I mean, it's just getting crazy now. It seems like every second somebody's testing positive. Election's been crazy. I haven't slept much because of that, but we've got 11 games, like I said. So right off the bat, we got, after coming off a monster game last week that Brett rode to the promised land, at least on Yahoo, I saw Patrick Mahomes played naked Mahomes. I might add it too, I think. But certainly worked out for you. That game has the biggest total against Carolina. There's going to be narratives that, Carolina is bad against the run, but pretty good against the pass. There's going to be that. So maybe some people, go away from him, but also it is right. Everybody tends to do what worked the week before. So, Mahomes is certainly going to get some ownership. Then there's the Bills Seattle game. I mean, any game with Seattle, just the way that offense is operating at such a high level, putting up so many points. There's just the opposing teams are running so many plays, being forced to pass because of the run pass funnel defense, because they're good against the rush. I think they're number 6 DVOA against the run, but they're a good run defense. Jamal Adams back, 55-point total. That game's going up. So, I mean, you guys know who I'm going to like already in that game. Then we've got what could be a sneaky shootout, kind of sneaky, not really that sneaky, but Raiders Chargers. I think certainly 52-point total, but I think that one could absolutely go off. We've got Kyler on the slate with no longer Kenyon Drake in the mix. So, it's Kyler and Chase Edmonds, who's electric with also, he's a better pass catching back, so that offense might just start humming. And what else we got? We've got Deshaun Watson and the Texans 7-point favorites against the Jags, who are just terrible on defense. 50-point total there. We've got Dalvin Cook again with the Vikings at home to what should be Matthew Stafford playing. It's a seesaw back and forth all week, but I think at this point we're trending towards him playing. So that game's 51.5-point total. And then we've got some other games with plays all around that I'm not even going to mention at this point. But how's the slate looking to you guys first glance?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting slate in general. Like, I know we get, 2 elite players coming back in the mix. Michael Thomas not on the main slate here, but he's in the main slate for like a site like Yahoo. And then you have Christian McCaffrey. So trying to figure out if they take away from other people's usage. It seems like that would be the case. I mean, we've been kind of just plug and playing Kamara with like his ridiculous 25% plus target share on the year, but you'd think like that would have to go down with Thomas back in. And then C-Mac, like what does he take away from the offense in general? Obviously a really tough pass defense with Kansas City anyway. So it's going to be tough for bringbacks if you do go with that KC chalk, but plenty of spots. I think you can definitely avoid chalky spots. My favorite my favorite spot right now is going to be just like the.
Really, it's interesting. It's a good one.
We lost Brett there, so
yeah. So to be continued there. But Tambo, how's it looking to you?
I'm assuming he'll come back and talk in a second, but if not, maybe he knows now. We'll go with me. But I like this slate, man. I like when we've got more totals in that 47 to 50-point range. The ownership gets a little bit more dispersed, not necessarily like last week. The big thing too was whether you agree with it or not. The idea of it being in the mix just made it so that you sort of everybody piles onto this one game, and maybe for good reason, but it didn't actually really pan out that way. And if you had a bunch of those Herbert stacks in the afternoon with the Chargers game there, you were doing okay. So I look at this slate.
He's good. He's freaking
so good. We're definitely going to talk about him on this slate. It's been incredible. His worst game so far is like 20 DK points, and he has one over 40. The other 4 are at like 24 to 27. He's just putting up points, and he looks good. His arm looks good. I mean, this is off topic, but I talked about it a little bit at the start of the season, since I've seen him show up. It just seems like with the team that he's got, and they're really banged up. If you look at the Chargers, the injuries all around, where their team is at, he's got a pretty big future here on a good squad and a weaker division. I think he's going to have a big upside in the future too. So if you're into the sports cards and collecting and gambling, I would
here we
certainly
go.
get it on his cards, because while Burrow's the number one pick and maybe even could be still the rookie of the year, I don't see him as the upside in the division he's stuck in versus a guy like our guy here that we're talking about, Herbert. He could have some big upside going into next season, and who knows what he does this week. So I like him.
I'm gonna have to tell my boy Bobby Gomes, the first Millionaire Maker winner, DraftKings, about to get on board with the Justin Herbert cards. I know he's big into those open box showings. He those card breaks.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Loves those.
Pretty
Chop
sweet.
loves those. Head Chopper loves those too.
It brings me back to when I was a kid with those just like opening up a pack of cards. There's
with
like
my
something
89 Ken Griffey Jr. rookies.
the upper deck
nice.
ones, or
Yeah, upper deck.
Yeah.
It was like the sweetest card.
you know, that's how they had to save their company, is they actually mass produced the 89 upper deck.
Yeah.
Because upper deck was going to go out of business. So what they did is they just mass produced that card to save their business. So there's just a huge surplus of that single card.
Yeah, it means it's not worth much then. Going
Exactly.
forward.
Yeah.
Dude, I had to sell all my cards to pay off gambling debts throughout the years. They're all worthless anyway. So,
Yeah.
I actually had
to.
my first bookie. I used to sell baseball cards. I used to be a baseball card dealer, in high school, and I used to do the shows and set them up like on the weekends, whatever. I got my first bookie that way. Actually, it was in 8th grade. Some freaking degenerate card dealer scumbag solicited me and got me a bookie when I'm in 8th grade. Like what a ruined my life. Ruined my life, this guy.
That seems like to be heavily correlated though. Like the groupies that you have with card collecting, and then
card collecting is gambling. You're essentially, it's a scratch ticket, right? You're opening a pack and like just hoping for that one card, like that's worth whatever. It's essentially gambling.
Yeah, it's better than scratch tickets though, because you can hit a card that's worth. Yeah, I don't know. The scratch tickets are just such a waste of time. You got to play them. This is like the excitement and adrenaline of what card's going to come out next. That's like those team breaks that you talked about that we all like. It's like the highest form of gambling, and they have boxes that are like $5,000 a box. So you're buying your share for $500 for 1/10, and then just hoping that
cool.
you hit the nut card of the box. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, we can get back to it
Anyway, should we just do a card show? On
next
cards
time.
right
Next time.
now? All right, so let's start it off at the quarterback or running back position is how we do it on this show, because I have so many shows out there. So running back, we're going to be starting off with Dalvin Cook. Looks like he's probably going to be the chalkiest, 8,200, or at least one of the chalkiest. 8,200 after that monster game. We were on it. We knew it on the pod. We were like, whoever mentioned it to me, and I just remember being like, wow. If he's healthy, I think we have to like this guy, right? And then I remembered that, and I like made a point to get more than I was getting, but I didn't have enough. I wish I had more than that. Plus I screwed up the whole the crunch anyway. But anyway, 51 fantasy points against Green Bay, bad against the run. Gets another top matchup here against Detroit, who is somebody that we've been targeting, but they've improved, at least from the DVOA perspective. They're now coming in at 16th. I know they were down towards the bottom of the pack, but certainly a team that in the dome there that he can have a big game against. I mean, Cook is just a maniac. He's so good. Then there's a guy that I love, James Conner. Against Dallas, like this, they're a monster. What are they? 2 touchdown favorites at this point. He's definitely been a bell cow at this point. At least over the last 2 weeks, it looks like we're getting like the 3 down back again with James Conner. I mean, he's just 15 rushes last week, 20 the week before, but like the targets 3 and then 5. So I mean, and those were toughish matchups against Baltimore and Tennessee. Finally now gets a really easy cupcake matchup against Dallas, who's just atrocious from all angles. And their season's done whatsoever, so that should be a run heavy script at least. And he's his price just looks really tempting to me at 6,900. James Robinson, my boy, should be back in the mix against Houston, right? Like the Texans are still, their defense is still atrocious. So certainly he could have a big game. Josh Jacobs in the mix here. Chase Edmonds, another guy who's going to be extremely popular because Miami is just so bad against the run. Plus they give up a ton of targets. This is a guy who's electric. Now with Kenyon Drake out. And I hate to say it, but David Montgomery looked pretty good last week.
I knew you were going to say
in a tough
that name.
matchup. I'm a truther on this guy. I think he's better than the narrative is on this guy. I think he's just been behind a terrible line with a bad team for so long, and like I still believe that he's like decent. But anyway, I mean he ripped off a big run finally last week in a tough matchup against the Saints. But I mean that's kind of the top end. Maybe there's like some guys like Justin Jackson, or you guys will have takes on maybe Derrick Henry, but tough matchup against Chicago, but still in the mix. But what are you guys thinking at running back?
Yeah, I mean, just starting up top with Delvin Cook, like obviously a great spot. I think the one thing that Kirkwood, you would have brought up last week about, not being fully on Delvin was just possibly, just Madison, coming in and taking a little bit of that. And that obviously wasn't the case with like a 30 carries Cook and then 3 with Madison. So it was just like a spell thing. But yeah, I mean, they only threw the ball 14 times. So I like Cook in this spot. It's going to be a tougher game to stack if Stafford doesn't play. You got no Galladay, so no big play threat. You would expect Marvin Jones to take some of that ownership in that game. So I don't know exactly where I'll be with Delvin Cook. I'll just say right now, I feel like I'll be underneath the field with Delvin. But yeah, I think you hit the next 2 guys I'm going to be big on. It's going to be Connor and Chase Edmonds. So Chase, just a spot. We don't know how many games we're going to get a bell cow Chase, but in this spot, I really like it versus Miami. Very similar matchups, I think, with Connor at Dallas and Chase home against Miami. I like these 2 spots. And, Chase is pretty fresh. I mean, he hasn't really had a bell cow role the whole year. So I do like the spot and agree with your David Montgomery take. I mean, Pro Football Focus kind of proves the point that he has actually been legit. I mean, I believe he's number 2 in broken tackles. You were just talking about how his offensive line really hasn't blocked well, just not getting a lot of adjusted line yardage off his offensive line. So not a bad spot for the Bears, which Tennessee defense has just looked brutal these last few weeks. So not a bad spot. And then I think some of my favorite like tournament spots would be Josh Jacobs with the questionable tag, kind of like that. And then 2 guys at 4,900, J.K. Dobbins and Justin Jackson. Curious to see where you guys are on those guys, but just kind of a quick way to just move up and down the running back board of how I felt. So Tambo, how you feeling?
Yeah, I wanted to be underweight on Cook because what I was hoping, I know the ownership wasn't going to change regardless, but if Stafford was going to be out, my thought was exactly what you said, is that he could get pulled a little bit early. Maybe he didn't do the work. You got a guy like Cousins. I was going to try and leverage it. Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson, Irv Smith. You got all these guys in that passing game. It's not like Detroit has a good defense. They got Okudah there, and he's had a couple. I think he's had an interception or 2 out of this year's draft, but nothing too special. And then you got Madison that could come in there and get the job done. So I was going to try and be sneaky, but if Stafford's going to play, I know there's still no Galladay, but I think the game would be a little bit more, if you want to call it competitive, I guess, just it would be a little bit better back and forth. So I could see it happening, but I'm still going to be underweight just based on what you just talked about, what I'm saying here. I'm going to go with some Madison shares. I'm also going to use the passing game. I think that's still going to be fine. The Montgomery one, I just never play the guy. You look at his volume, everything's there. He definitely could get it done. I'm with you on Justin Jackson. I think that game is going to be more popular than sneaky after, a couple days ago, you fill in the survey for RotoGrinders and you look at stuff. It feels like more and more people are talking about this game. I think Justin Jackson is a way to get unique within that game. I like Josh Jacobs, who you mentioned, like Connors quite a bit. I think it's interesting with Connors because he really does pair well with that Pittsburgh defense for tournaments, which is extremely overpriced this week at 4,900. But is it overpriced, right? With this matchup and against Dallas, who's just absolutely terrible. I know Zeke even is questionable at this point, so I just don't know what they're going to be doing out there. I think Connors pairs well with that. And then Kirkwood, man, I love James Robinson this week, your boy. It's I don't know why they just don't seem to do much with this price. They don't want to put him past 7,000, so this week they just put him right on 7,000. But I think he just has so much upside at that price tag. And then the one guy we didn't talk about, so I'll flip it to you, Kirkwood, is what do we do with McCaffrey at 8,500 here? Because
you just stole my thunder. I was waiting just to interject that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Right? Like I do know we play this guy. Right.
Yeah.
If we're gonna like the Chiefs, we're gonna like Mahomes, we're gonna like Tyreek Hill, we're gonna like Travis Kelce. At least I do. And you're gonna want to bring it back with someone, right? And we can do DJ Moore for sure. We can do Robbie Anderson, but like McCaffrey, like this is the guy, right? Like Mike Davis came back down to earth, right? And so this is still the number one, fantasy pick. The guy who's just electric. He's cheap for what he normally is. I mean, this is a guy who you would probably expect to be like 9 plus 10K potentially. And we're getting him at 8,500 in a game where like in the Chiefs, like that's what you do. You run against them, right? Like that's where they've allowed all the production. They've been so good against the pass this season. I mean, their defense has been good overall, but in general, they've been gashed on run. Plus, like it just makes the most sense to go back down to check down in the passing game too as well. So like this guy could have just a monster day in comeback mode, just eat.
I feel like this is too. You mentioned one thing quick. Sorry, Brett, but I just think, like you said, not only is his price down from what we would expect, his ownership at that price is further down. And I know there's going to be late steam. I don't expect him to be 5%. I expect him to really gain steam towards the end of the week here. But even then, let's say he gets to 20%. Let's just throw that number out there. Normally at this price and this matchup and this spot, any other time, he'd be like 30, 35%. So you're still getting a little bit of gain there in that sense.
There's that cloud, right? Like we don't know, like if he's going to be the exact same workload in his first game back, right?
The Dalvin Cook cloud.
We didn't.
Last week.
We didn't know that. We didn't know that with Dalvin. So like,
50, 51.
Yeah. So now everyone's going to be like, oh, Dalvin did.
How many times did we play him at 10K when they were implied to score like 18 points last year?
Exactly. You said it. Yeah.
So I'm off this passing game because of C-Mac. And I think I do really like bringing back with C-Mac. I mean, obviously it's going to be one of those things where check ownership, but yeah, I mean, you want to get leverage off of Dalvin Cook. There's your guy.
I'm with you.
What else? I had somebody else. Oh, so we got to talk about DJ Dallas because he looked pretty damn good last week. Homer will be back this week, but like what's Homer's real role?
Nothing. They just signed a guy too.
It's Alex Collins.
Yes, Alex Collins, who's been there before. And I don't know, there was a lot of like hey, he's going to be okay to take quite a bit of carries. Now, I don't exactly believe that. Let's see. So Pete Carroll said he's very comfortable with playing Alex Collins this week against the Bills. And then they kind of went into detail about handling a workload alongside DJ Dallas. So, I mean, could have a little bit more, piece of the pie siphoned away from this week.
Yeah, but he's still on an offense that like produces like the most points.
Mm-hmm.
And Bills were 24th against the run. He looked pretty good last week. He was utilized in the passing game. That's where he looked the best. Or at least, he got his receiving touchdown. Did have one on the ground as well. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to make with it, but I know 5K, and if he has like even close to the role that he had last week, that looks like a pretty damn good play.
That said, Kirkwood, do you have thoughts on Jackson or Dobbins for $100 less that are right there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, so as far as Jackson's concerned, I'm just like, I just love Herbert and this passing game, and I just feel like Keenan Allen. I just feel like it's just like he's meant to be a passing. This is meant to be a passing offense. So
I like Jackson though. 5, 6, and 6 were his targets the last 3 games. So
yeah,
and Kelly hasn't really done much, so I can use him with Herbert. He's one of the guys, I think him with Herbert, and I think Edmonds with Kyler, who we'll get to for sure. I know you're going to want to talk some Kyler. I think those two are definitely areas where you could pair up, where I'm actually still interested in the quarterback quite a bit.
I like Dobbins too. I do. I like them all. I mean, I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest with you. But I mean, I like the Seattle situation. You know what I mean? I like you. I want pieces of this offense where you can get it.
Some sneaky in and out for injury wise. Like there is no Troymaine Pope, so we saw Troymaine get like a pretty huge targets and catches last week. So X him out. So now it's back to a 2-back system. And then, like, I know you guys both brought up James Robinson, but we're now including Chris Thompson back in this offense. And obviously Jake Luton starting at quarterback. So it's an interesting situation that's probably going to make me avoid James Robinson just because Chris Thompson back, which I know, Kirkwood, you were on him 2 weeks ago with your huge week. But, I mean, throwing Luton, you throw in Chris Thompson taking target shares away from him, I think I got to be out there.
Yeah, you got Connor right there.
I liked him anyway, even if before Chris Thompson was out. It pushed me over the edge when Chris Thompson was out. But, like, Minshew is horrible. So, I don't know.
But as we've seen, like, horrible quarterbacks be really good fantasy-wise for running backs, right? I mean, we don't know I've looked at this guy, and he's not any athletic specimen. So he's going to have to utilize, everybody around him. He's not going to be taken off and running. So it's just the unknown, and then throw Chris Thompson back in the mix. That's makes me off James Robinson.
And you got Connor for $100 less, who we all like regardless. So
yeah.
And then you're forced into him if you don't need to. You don't need to go there if you don't want to. I get it.
Right, and I'm probably going to invest David Johnson on the other side of the ball just more. So spot where I'm going to buy him.
God, I just want to fade him so bad.
Yeah, sell me on that because I'm not feeling it. But
it's just a situation, a touchdown favorite. It's nothing like that. Ever since week 1 where we saw some explosive runs, he's had a few. I'd like to see more touchdowns on the board, but
that can always come around. He even caught a pass last week. So I was going to say I like him a bit as leverage off of Watson in that aspect, which we'll get to. But I also kind of think that's another combo, just mentioning it now, that could go together as a way to get unique within that game. And I think most people running stacks in this game are setting it up with Watson, Fuller, and James Robinson on the other side. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's a price point play too.
And
so,
Cooks, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
but
Cooks
so
too.
there's no way I'm playing Watson to David Johnson.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
No, it's not. It just happened last week, though.
By the way, the bring back for me in Jacksonville, since I don't like the running game, if you're looking for correlation, I think Laviska Shenault is pretty big. You have a rookie quarterback coming back. They have a bye week, right? This rookie wide receiver, Laviska from Colorado, utilized in a lot of different aspects of the offense. I think they get him involved in a lot of unique options. At 4,200, it makes a lot of sense for me. So that would be my favorite bring back in that situation.
Yeah, I love that. Anybody else?
Big game, James, for me. But Chase Edmonds, let's just talk about it. The situation. So like we said, the every down back, Dolphins dead last DVOA against Russian defense. They're also 28th in yards allowed per carry. Interesting thing is Edmonds has averaged 7.2 yards per touch on the seasons. The Dolphins have also get gashed by running back targets, where they're allowing 6.6 yards per target. He's an electric back, right? Like he's an electric passing game back, right? That's has been his role, and now he gets everything. So he's like walking into the nut matchup from just like a yards per carry standpoint and DVOA standpoint, and yet he also, should be utilized in his role where he's best at in the passing game. So like, man, like there's so many different avenues for him to get there in this game. It feels kind of hard not to just jam him in. Except Kyle, the cloud is like Kyler. Like if Kyler like Sure. The rushing touchdown.
Plant your flag on one guy between James Conner and Chase Edmonds, who are 6,800 and 6,900. Is there a lean there for either one of you guys? Tambo?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Connor.
I'm on Chase Edmonds' side for sure.
I'm gonna play them both.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you can. You're allowed to play them both. That's the good news here. But I'm really thinking about like I said, but I will play Kyler with him, so I'm not too worried about it. You could even sometimes with a mobile quarterback like that, I don't even double stack it. I'll just play those two and hope that when they get in that red zone, that it's just one of those two that score, or maybe it's a check down to them that's a pass that goes in and they both pick up the points. So I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, we need a hand in the dirt take with J.K. Dommins from the biggest Baltimore fan.
Terrible.
No,
I don't care about that game. No, I don't. I'm not. I mean, he won't even get the ownership, but I'm happy.
I feel like you haven't bought Baltimore all year, and you're like a fan. Yeah. And the thing is, it's been the play basically.
Times I've been correct on it, but this is the thing. Like, I mean, they've just run so much. Even last week, like, they're still talking about Lamar and his knee. What are you talking? He had 9 the week before last. Last week he had 16 rushes.
Right, but there hasn't probably been a more disappointing offense than Baltimore, right? I mean, we expected regression. Yeah, we expected regression.
Segue. He's coming. $6,900 Lamar Jackson.
Dude, he's cheap on Yahoo.
Inside on the track.
So I love Hollywood.
I mean that's the play.
The narrative. Squeaky wheel.
I mean, I like that, but I like him inside in a freaking dome where he can just burn anybody. All right. So did we talk enough about running backs?
I think the only guy I would throw out there, I know you guys have had a lot more love with Antonio Gibson, another team, Washington, coming off of a bye. And this Giants offense is ridiculous, right? So it's a spot where we could pair up the Washington D with Gibson. At 5,800, I think you're going to get him for low ownership. I don't know, man. Like, it's just the McKissick role in this offense has constantly been there, taking away targets. The last game Gibson had was an awesome rushing game, right? 1 target in the offense, no catches. Can you go back to Gibson?
Dude, Tambo and I tell Gibson every single week, and you say that McKissick. And now he's changed the roles here.
He's flipping it after he just sold us off of James Robinson because of Chris Thompson. I know it's a difference.
This is DFS, baby. It's a new week.
It's a new week. Okay.
This is our boy. All right. We claimed this guy already.
All right.
We got this guy, man.
Tell him then. You haven't said one word about him yet.
Yeah. Oh. We play him every week.
He's in the pool. He's in the pool, Brett.
All right. Just making sure.
Yeah, we've talked enough about running back. Wait, I had someone pop in my head. Who cares?
DeAndre Swift would be
No. We got to talk Tony Pollard if Zeke is out.
Ugh. Yeah, is he 4K?
He's 4K.
It's an if then. If Zeke is out,
if Zeke is out, I mean, we just play this guy, right?
Yeah, this is a defense doesn't matter.
It's like Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They're going to be passing the ball. He's going to get a lot of checkdowns
from a horrible quarterback.
Which one's it going to be?
But if Stafford's out, I'm going to play Madison at the same number at 4K. If Stafford's out, I don't think he's going to be, but let's just say he was.
All right. Let's go over to quarterback. All right. So his price is down. Josh Allen gets the matchup with Seattle, who just allow the most passes to opposing quarterbacks. They're also a pass funnel defense. That word gets thrown around a little bit too much, but that's essentially what they are. They're good at stopping the run. John Brown is healthy again, so he should have all his weapons. He's certainly played poorly. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm the biggest Josh Allen stan, one of them. But if there's ever a spot, they're big game, they're at home. The weather's supposed to be nice. This isn't going to be like a really cold, windy game. It's supposed to be nice weather in Buffalo for this game. So certainly going to need to be keeping up. And also Seattle plays that a lot of man defensive scheme where, it's everyone says it, but the the defenders have their back to the quarterback, and Josh Allen is able to get, probably will have some scrambles in this game for some nice runs. And if all I have to do is remind you guys of Cam Newton, what he was able to do to them in week 2, where he just threw for a ton, ran for a ton, rushing touchdown after rushing touchdown. So a big game is certainly in the range of outcomes for Josh Allen. So I like him. We also have Deshaun Watson, who gets the matchup with the Jags. It's a good matchup. It's easy to pair him with either Fuller or Cooks, or if you want to be Tambo, David Johnson. And Justin Herbert is Tambo and I both love him. At least we were saying. I'm sure Brett will get on board there. Russ, you can always play Russ, right? Like Russ, 7,600, and yet he's still not like the highest owned quarterback every single week, which he should be, right? The guy just crushes. Kyler Murray, we're finally back, right? We finally have all the damn options. We've got Kyler,
all the damn options.
We got them all. Like it felt rough for a little period, right? Like I used freaking Jimmy G everywhere last week. Like what a freak! Like I don't need to think about any type of quarterback and. That's like Jimmy G. I can take some shots on some guys that, maybe like maybe Drew Lock or Bridgewater or I don't know, like anybody. But the reality is we got Mahomes, Murray, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and Josh Allen. Like take your pick, boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only non-running quarterback that I have interest in is Drew Lock. I guess Matt Ryan in that same game I would have a little interest in, but yeah, I mean, you kind of hit up the Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson. I think though the play still is Russ, man, in this spot. I don't think they trust their run game at all. The offense is going to have to throw through the pass game. The running backs that they do have, I just don't think can tote the rock that much, right? They just don't trust them. So Russ is going to take this on his shoulders again. I mean. Just feels like all the touchdowns come on his shoulders here. Buffalo has been really bad versus the pass, and like you said, Buffalo is not really getting bad weather. So, love that spot right there. You guys brought up Herbert, and yeah, he's been amazing. Don't know how much I like him currently. I feel like this is a Lamar spot, but I'm going to let Tambo take this. Tell me about Lamar. I've been hearing on other pods this is only his second game on turf, so it's got to be that seems sexy, right? I mean, get that speed going.
It's just the price. Like he's showing up at like 5% ownership right now. Even if people come around a little bit, it's just you take your shot. You mentioned earlier about the fast track Kirkwood. The guy that we used to love indoor on that was T.Y. Hilton. This is that's what Brown basically does. The same sort of thing. He's squeaky wheel narrative or not. It's just a good spot. I mean, Mark Andrews is 4,800. I like the price. I don't like that matchup as much, but I think that, again, with Lamar, you don't need to pair him up with a bunch of guys. You can just go Lamar. He does so much on the ground himself. You can go Lamar and Brown. If you like Dobbins, maybe get him in there. Maybe he catches one and takes it. Gus Edwards is who they use to pound with. But if he's going to be chucking it or has got some pass rush coming at him, which Indy can do, he could check down to a guy like Dobbins, and that could be your little stack there. And then it depends on what you want to do on the other side. But there's, Marcus Johnson at 3,000 that's in play this week. You've got the tight end situation that you've got to sift through with all the guys. But I like this game indoors and at those prices is just somewhere that you can go. We all liked Detroit and Indy last week as, that sort of spot and see what you can get out of it. Lamar is due for some regression or some stuff to bounce back. So I think that we could see a better game here out of him. And I like him much more with Hollywood Brown than I do Mark Andrews, who is what I hear most people talking about based on him being $4,800. So I like Lamar. I'm in on Justin Herbert. I'm in on Deshaun Watson. One other guy I'm on that I mentioned earlier, Cousins, just because I like leveraging that side of the game there. I actually think it's a good spot to throw against Detroit. I'm happy about that. I think his options with Thielen and Jefferson and Irv Smith, guys that we like, that we have liked, that you can pair those guys up and use Marvin Jones, who most people have across from Dalvin Cook, or you can get, Amendola or someone weird in there from Detroit. But one guy I was going to mention is Derek Carr, the other side of Herbert in that game. I really like Waller this week. We saw what Ruggs can do. I like Ruggs. I think there's a way you could go and get a little bit more unique here and even have a guy like Justin Jackson on the other side. So I like this game, but I like both quarterbacks in it, and we'll have lineups with both of them. Thoughts on that, Kirkwood?
I don't know. I mean, I like it. I don't mind Carr, but I love Herbert, right?
Yeah.
The thing that gets overlooked it's just, you don't quite realize it. I mean, the dude's had 43 passing attempts in back-to-back weeks now. He had 9 rushing. He showed his legs with 9 rushing attempts and 66 rushing yards and a rushing TD against the Jags. He had 3 rushing attempts. So at least he's running. There's a rushing floor now. He's getting more comfortable, right? There's a little bit of a cloud over him with the shoulder somewhat. I guess he got added to the injury report this week. But I don't think it's anything major. And it's just so easy to just put Keenan Allen with him, who had a great game last week, but still hasn't hit his ceiling yet, right? This Keenan Allen we'll get into, but he is an elite target share. He's with the top end, the Devontae Adams, the DeAndre Hopkins guys, but he's still, although he is priced up more this week, he just hasn't been priced like them. But he's just got such a floor in PPR that those targets, and Herbert's just chucking so much that it's just such an easy pairing. But I also, you can still go to the other weapons that they have and on the Chargers too with them. But Keenan is just so easy. Carr, I mean, I'm never excited to play Carr. I'll play him for sure, especially when I max enter. But am I going to sit here and say I love him? I can't.
Yeah, he gets Bryan Edwards back into this offense. So that's going to make things kind of interesting just for wide receiver usage and routes run and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, Ruggs is always the big play guy that you think.
Yeah, it's easy. It's Ruggs or it's Waller. It's you're going for upside, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can play your Renfro. You can play who knows what Edwards' role is going to be.
I mean, Aguilar's been the wide receiver one.
There's Aguilar too. Yeah, so it's
he's been the wide receiver one.
How much he cuts into Aguilar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but do you believe that?
No, and you would think Bryan Edwards, what share are you going to take away on the outside? Are you going to take away Ruggs' routes, or are you going to take Aguilar routes? And you'd think it'd be Nelson's routes that go bye-bye.
It's not going to be Ruggs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how excited are you guys for Mahomes?
I think where the chalk is going to be, I'm having issues bringing it back with Carolina guys, right? I mean, we kind of I said I'm not really going to be buying the Carolina passing too much just because of Christian McCaffrey coming back. So I do want to have a Christian McCaffrey and then a Casey stack, but that's so expensive to do. And then you're just going to have to find cheap.
You're going to get
cheap leverage.
You're going to have Tony Pollard by Sunday.
Yeah.
Who knows? Then there's
then you're going to be forced into a Marcus Johnson or some of these Laviska Chenaults, where you're kind of gambling on a cheaper wide receiver with it. But
I think it can be done. I think it can be done, though.
Yeah. It's tough. I'm not there on Kansas City as much as I was last week. That's for sure.
I like him, but and then how excited are you guys for Kyler?
Yeah, I like Kyler quite a bit too. He's right there, so you can't play everybody. That's the thing, right? I like Watson. I think there's some plays you can go off of there, but yeah, Mahomes paying all the way up seems like the way to go that everybody just keeps ignoring, even though they're the best offense in football that just can go off. 3 quarters doesn't matter. 39 DK points, whatever it was last week. He just goes off every time, and all he does is chuck the ball, even to his running backs, everyone. So Kyler's the play because of the Edmonds situation, I think, right? If you want to get off that and be a little bit different in your running back position, that's the way to go about it. And we'll get to wide receiver, but no one's on the Arizona wide receivers this week, right? They're all just talking about Edmonds. So it's clearly a good play and a good way to go in tournaments, especially large field.
Here's my thoughts on Mahomes, right? So, and I've said this before on past shows, like this is a passing offense. There's no way around it. Yes, they can torch you on the ground, and they have two completely capable, viable backs. And the matchup says like, okay, you're probably gonna hear it everywhere that the Carolina is so bad against the run. They're 26th in DVOA, but they're also 20th in DVOA versus the pass. They also don't get any pressure on the quarterback, right? They're like, what are they? They're 30th in sack rate. I just see here pulled up. And, so if you're going to give Mahomes a clean pocket and on the season so far, 21 passing touchdowns for the Chiefs, 7 rushing touchdowns. 2 of those rushing touchdowns are from Mahomes. 1 of those rushing touchdowns is from Chad Henne. So you're looking at 21 to 4 touchdowns. Like this is a passing offense, right? And like that's like the Carolina's not going to stop that.
Yeah, and Carolina's going to have to play zone defense versus these guys. They don't have the defensive backfield to, guard up on these guys. So Mahomes is just going to pick them apart. I kind of agree with that take, but it's just a price. It's a pricing that it's making me tough to get there. But yeah, I don't hate skinny stacks, I guess, this week. So probably not a lot of like, getting 2 pass catchers here, just because of just how like, I mean, if I'm going correlation, right, I'm going C-Mac, I'm going like a Tyreek or a Kelsey with Mahomes, and there goes my budget. So like that's the only thing. It's a price thing.
All right, let's move it on over to wide receiver. Guys that are going to be really popular. So Keenan Allen, I already mentioned him, should be popular because it's just monster target share, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's coming in ranked 4th in targets, and this is with a bad game, with a game where he missed most of with the Saints, that game when he went down early. He's still ranked 4th in targets, 5th in receptions, 53 receptions so far, north of 30% target share. And his price is still reasonable, right? And it's just he's got the reason he hasn't like popped off is because of like touchdowns. And it was nice to see him get in the end zone, but like the week before against the Jags, 25 fantasy points with no touchdowns, right? Like there's a 2 touchdown game that's coming. It's coming somewhere. And like you give him his target share, you get the PPR points, the connection he's building week in and week out with Herbert. It's like I just see like there's a monster game coming, and like this week could be the one against the Raiders. So I like that. Tyler Lockett, it's just the easiest thing. You go when Metcalf goes off, the next week you play Lockett, and then Lockett goes off, and then you go back to Metcalf, right? So that's what we're supposed to do. So that means it's Tyler Lockett week, but also it's Tre'Davious White week, who's going to be all over that grown-ass man, DK Metcalf, who still can win any matchup, right? But like this is a much better matchup for Tyler Lockett. So I have to lean Lockett again, although that crushed me last week. But like,
I have a feeling we're going to talk about these matchups with Seattle quite a bit because like their next 5 weeks, DK on the outside, we'll see Tre'Davious White, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Peterson again, and then Darius Slay and James Bradbury. I mean, that was our 5 very elite corners on the outside.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week, and it doesn't matter because DK Metcalf is better than all of them, and it's talent versus matchup. He's better than them, and he's going to beat them, and it just doesn't matter. So you just continue to.
Right, we say that, but like
I think Tre'Davious White matters to an extent.
He's good, and most of these guys are good. I'm just saying we've just seen it. It literally takes a slip.
He's
on
a
the
grown-ass
field.
man.
Anything can happen. These guys will burn you.
What we saw against Patrick Peterson was interesting because I mean, like everything would say that Patrick Peterson is not that elite anymore, but they definitely game plan for Lockett to get the ball. So it doesn't really matter what we think. It's like how are they planning? How are they? It's they didn't throw the ball at all to him that week. So yeah. I don't know.
There's Julio Jones with Calvin Ridley should be out against the AJ Bouye-Les, who's now out, Denver Broncos. So, I mean, Julio could absolutely erupt. So, I mean, this is like the week. We've got all the plays again. We've got DeAndre Hopkins, but like that's a guy I would fade. Like out of all the guys I've mentioned, I would have to. I'll say I like. I mean, just because of price, but I like Julio, Lockett, and Keenan Allen better. Diggs as the comeback option against the Seattle defense, right? Like there's so many guys here. Marvin Jones is now without Golladay there. He'll probably bust because that's just what happens. But I don't know. Brandon Cooks. Oh, Will Fuller. I love Will Fuller. I don't know who else you. I mean, so what are your? And then we've got like Jerry Jeudy for 4,700. Against this Atlanta defense. I think he's going to end up being popular by Sunday?
Judy definitely will in game stacks. I don't know like anything outside of correlation, how much, but I mean, yeah, the guy's gotten a ton of opportunity. I'm right there with you.
Let's say you're building that Mahomes stack, right? And you need to get cheap guys, and Tony Pollard opens up. When you throw Jerry Jeudy in as like another receiver, like you can just he'll be very useful in that situation. I think I think there's still a lot of upside there. Deontay Johnson, 5K. So there's plenty of options around. And then Tyreek Hill, and then there's John Brown as another option. So there's so many. So Tambo, where are we going?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's just a lot. One of the things you mentioned there too, I believe Sammy Watkins is still questionable. So when you talk about this Kansas City stack, you've still got Mecole Hardman's 4,800. Robinson had a decent game there last week. It's like 3,200. So there's options here to make that stack work quite nicely. And I still, like I said, even with the late steam and people that eventually get around to this, I just don't think that's what they're trying to jam in when you've got Russ, Allen, Kyler. Lamar's too cheap. We just mentioned all these guys that we talked about. They're just, then even Herbert and those guys. So I think it's still a good way to go. I do like all of those Kansas City options. I don't know. You mentioned not really liking Hopkins that much at the top. I was sort of thinking that's a way to go with Kyler, right? He's got a great floor. The ceiling's, 30 plus and see what he does there at 8,200 when you've got Metcalf, Diggs, Julio Chalk, and, Allen just below. But I'd have to agree with you on Allen. The price increase from last week, which was the dumbest price of all time, still is too little at just 7,000. So, I like Hopkins. I like Metcalf. I like Diggs. I like Allen. That's sort of the guys at the top. Lockett's obvious in that slot matchup that you mentioned. McLaurin pops a little bit at 6,500. I could go there for some shares. Definitely like Jefferson, Thielen in those Cousins stacks. So, I'll mention them. Marquise Brown, who we talked about. And then you talked about it earlier, Kirkwood, with the Cooks being a way to differentiate. You can have Cooks and Fuller. So that's sort of where I'm at before we get down into the 5K range. Then there's a bunch more value plays that pop down there, or sort of mid-range values that I would say.
LB.
Yeah, just one guy that I'm going to throw out there as a value play that I really love. It's going to be Darnell Mooney this week in Tennessee. Tennessee's defense has been brutal. These D-backs are just getting burned. What Tennessee has been doing, though, is they've been putting Malcolm Butler on the top guy. And this other guy, Kareem Orr, has been taking basically the wide receiver 2, has been giving up a lot in his coverage. So I love Mooney. We've seen him get wide open in a lot of spots, and now playing in Tennessee, I love him at 3,900. I feel like he should be over 5K here.
Here's food for thought, though. Like, if you're going to put Malcolm Butler on Allen Robinson, I kind of want some Allen Robinson.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, that's not like that's not something to be afraid of. I kind of just threw that out there. Like, he's actually been shadowing, right? So I'm kind of just saying, like, I kind of know that Kareem Orr will be on this Darnell Mooney. Kareem Orr in coverage gave up 9 for 80 and 2 touchdowns to Deontay Johnson 2 weeks ago. T. Higgins had 6 for 78 in his coverage last week. So.
I'm with you. I think Mooney is a good play. He's a massive deep threat. He's good, right? Like he's. I'm with you. I like the play. I'm just saying I also like Allen Robinson if you're gonna put Malcolm Butler on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Tyreek, right? The guy just scores a touchdown at least every week. I don't know. I have interest in him for sure. Like, I don't think we've seen that huge ceiling game he's had, but we've certainly seen like the floor that this guy has had every week, except for that one game in Buffalo, which is Tre'Davious White. But certainly is still getting it done. Marquise Brown, I'm with. So I've got a friend who's a real sharp sports bettor. He's one of the he's been hammering over props on Marquise, and they never like sharp sports bettors usually hammer under, like it's like always under. It's always under. He's like Marquise Brown overs this week, and this is my friend Justin Smith. His Twitter handle is at RIPJKS. RIPJKS. AKA he's known in the betting industry as the Farmer. I don't know, weird name, but anyway.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah. So the Farmer has been hammering Marquise Brown over props and was like, you got to play Marquise Brown this week. And when he gives me a play like this, he's usually right. So I got to mention it on the show.
Minnesota, Detroit's kind of interesting. If Stafford is good to go, I think both Thielen and Jefferson are in play. Kind of lean towards Jefferson. I just want Minnesota to pass more, man. It's just like a spot that, the 14 attempts last week. So, I mean, even Irv Smith, I think like he's dirt cheap, like where he's also involved if they can just up the pass ratio in this offense. So I'm good going back there to leverage off the Delvin Cook chalk.
John Brown has to have a big game someday.
Yep. Yes. Please talk.
I don't know. I mean, he just has to have a big game someday.
I'm right there with you.
And I mean, that game was just atrocious last week with New England, but that was like weather induced as well as, the Patriots, their D was playing well. And Josh Allen was playing poor. But like this is the matchup, right? And like the deep balls against Seattle. So, and Diggs is gonna command a lot of attention. And we like Diggs, but like 4,600, it's like you just takes like, one play, one touchdown, nice long pass to John Brown, and you are sitting pretty.
Yeah,
Tambo,
I like that with Allen, but go ahead.
Tambo, I'm trying to figure out the Detroit wide receivers. Obviously, no Galladay. I'm going to have Love if Stafford's in. But the last time Galladay was out, we saw Quintez Cephas, UW alum, come in and run a bunch of routes. Do you have any love out of these Detroit wide receivers?
I wish he did something since then. He hasn't done anything all season since.
He wasn't activated last week.
No, I know that.
What about Amendola?
Amendola, it's the slot. I was just going to say that. That's where I would go, but then I just always worry, like, what's his ceiling? Because, they're
going to have to pass versus the Vikings. That's where you attack them, right? And look at all these guys. Look at the prices. 51 Jones.
Yeah, but the problem is like Patricia just loves fucking pounding that rock.
Yeah. Amendola, it would honestly probably be Brett to go. I don't know. You'd have to get a little lucky with it, I think. But, with Swift, it's the other. If you wanted to go passing, leave Dalvin and the boys out of it and then hope that he's going to keep getting 4 and 5 targets a game and actually just rips one to the house because it's a similar thing. He's not playing out of the slot necessarily like a guy like Amendola, but like Amendola is going to ceiling out at 13 or 15. Like it just doesn't get enough going and his price is all right. So I wouldn't hate it. It's not something that I'd be excited about popping in there. I'd rather try and angle it for something that can get me a little more action. And you'd already be leveraged off the running back game anyway there with the pass game. So you can then go throw in a guy like Swift who might break one or get lucky, or there might be a pass interference, run touchdown in that way, and then catch one on a slant and go. And then you double down on him and hit it that way. That's all I could think of though. Yeah,
I would definitely say look at 90 minutes before kickoff, I expect Cephas to be active. But if you can get an understanding of the starting wide receivers, I think Cephas is 100% in play at 3K. Last time Galladay was out, he ran basically all the Galladay routes. So I like it.
You guys love Julio or no?
Yeah, I think regardless regardless of the injury. In fact, I think it's a great tournament play if Ridley ends up going. So he's going to probably turn into the chalk if Ridley's out. But I think if Ridley gets ruled in, I'm still right there on Julio. Getting a lot of shares. So.
I know you guys said Jefferson, but nobody did we talk about Thielen at all?
I combined both of them.
I said both. I'm definitely, and I like the double stack with Cousins. Even I'm going all the way. So,
but again, I think to buy the Vikings pass, you almost have to have Stafford playing, right?
Oh, for sure. That's what I was saying earlier. All this Minnesota stuff hinges on that. Like if Stafford's out, like I said, I'm not as high on Cook, and I actually don't mind Madison, maybe even with the Minnesota D, to pair up against Chase Daniels, and you can get it that way.
Has avoiding a Detroit game really hurt us yet this year?
Probably not.
I don't know. I'm asking honestly. I can't remember.
They've left. I mean, they've given up big games to the running backs on the year. So I mean, there had to be some monsters.
Typically, it's one-offs. Like you said, Marvin Jones is always going to bust when Galladay's out just because it's so easy to get him, and it's 5,100, and it's not because he's the chalk. It just never seems to work out that way, whether it's because the other team just knows, okay, it's pretty obvious where we're going to shut them down now. If we shut down Marvin Jones, we win the game, and that's why, like you brought up Amendola, I just don't love his ceiling. I think it would be something like a Swift getting lucky and figuring out a way to get there. Who knows, right? Maybe they get up early, and then you get Minnesota coming back that whole time with that pass game. I actually love that regardless, but I'd much rather Stafford be in for me to go that way.
Kirkwood's right, though. Like, Detroit wants to also run the ball, so this could be – I mean, they're both a slower-paced offense, so this could be an ugly, ugly game.
But it's in the dome, too, so that gives us the – Cardi's gonna love that.
Yeah, but Atlanta, better dome game this weekend, I think.
All right. Do we anybody we miss? Any low-owned plays? Any –
I'd like to just, put it down.
I mean, Pittsburgh is going to have – I mean, we like James Conner, but, somebody's going to have, a 50-yard TD in this game against Dallas.
Yeah, I think I'm –
At least one.
I had, a double plan for both wide receivers of Mooney and John Brown. You obviously hit up a lot of John Brown, but Mooney's my guy this week. I'm going to have a ton of shares across the industry of him. So, and then, I know I kind of touched on it a little bit, but Jacksonville coming off the bye – I'm going to have plenty of shares of the Houston stack and have been having issues with what guy to bring it back with Jacksonville. But I think with a bye week, they get Laviska Shenault more involved in this offense with the rookie quarterback coming in play. So I like him in a lot of underneath routes, possible carries, short dump off, stuff like that, just getting unique with Laviska.
Yeah, I'm using a lot of those stacks too. I talked about Watson, I'm big on him this week. So, but instead of James Robinson and all those lineups, which everybody's doing, I do like Laviska the most, and I wouldn't even mind some Keelan Cole actually at 4,000. He's another guy that can just break a game open right quick, and all of a sudden he's at 20, 25 fantasy points at 4K, and you're laughing. And I like your Mooney call. I'm with you on that one as well.
One more guy that I'll throw out there is we kind of touched on Deontay Johnson, but I think he kind of truly is the alpha or the most, I don't know, he's there every week. Now, this is a guy that's risky, though, with in-game injuries, but, I mean, against Dallas, this is just a spot where I think he could smash. And, the big thing is, the second half, how many passes are they going to even have to do, right? Because Pittsburgh can just dominate with their offensive line versus D-line, so I don't know. But I do want to have some shares of Deontay for sure.
So I was saying that, I was just saying, we like Connor, but one of these Pittsburgh receivers is definitely going to get at least one nice touchdown, whether it's Claypool, Johnson, or Juju, because it's just because this Dallas D is trash. I just don't know which one.
Yeah, Claypool still looks really good, man. I thought we were chasing there for a little bit, but the more I watch him and just how good he is, it's pretty incredible. And he's huge, man. He's like another DK out there. He's just collecting balls. He's the Canadian. He's the number one Canadian wide receiver in the NFL. Kirkwood. So he's
out of the mouth of the number one Canadian DFS player.
Exactly.
You heard it here.
Sounds like some correlation to me.
Yeah,
bang,
gotta get on it.
Right there. All right, tight end. Let's get it going over there. Darren Waller, Travis Kelce are the two top guys, and deservedly so. I mean, it's just targets, right? Like Kelce, 67 targets on the season, 48 receptions, 6 touchdowns, massive red zone threat, right? So like he's he's like the wide receiver 1, right? So it's between him or Tyreek for your wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. So and you get to play him at tight end. There's Darren Waller, who's 62 targets on the season, 45 receptions, not as many yards. Certainly, he gets a lot of that lower ADOT stuff. 3 touchdowns on the season. In what is a game that we got, all of us kind of agree that is likely to pop off. So Waller saves you a little bit money off of Kelce. So those are like the 2 wide receiver 1s you get to play at the tight end position. From there, we've got other guys like Noah Fant for game script against Atlanta. And who else? Hayden Hurst in that same game on the other side could potentially get interesting. TJ Hawkinson, maybe, because of Galladay out. Evan Ingram is a guy that's, he's
finally looked playable.
I mean, I've always liked him, and so I've taken it on the chin when he's had bad weeks and whatnot, but he's averaged 11 touches, because he's gotten a couple of rushes in over the last 2 games. So, Washington, one of the ways to attack them is with the tight ends, and because they have that really good front, and so you can you want to get rid of the ball quickly, so they could utilize Ingram in that way. And he had a pretty good game the other night. He hasn't found the end zone at all this season, but that he's going to. So, his quarterback is not very good, but 4,300, I like that. Jaceki kind of interests me. I know the narrative of he's bad, plus Fitz is gone, and so there's not a Tua you got to worry about not having excellent quarterback play, but you get so many plays against Arizona. I don't know. I just have this sneaky feeling that he's going to have a big game this week. I don't know. Who are you guys keying in on?
I think with the top 2 guys, I lean towards playing more Waller than Kelce. But I mean, obviously don't hate Kelce. Probably only have Kelce in skinny stacks there. Yeah, the 4K range is, I think, the interesting part for me. It's the Noah Fant in spots where I want to have a lot of game stacks, and then Hayden Hurst. I think my ownership of Hayden Hurst will depend on the injury status there. So I don't know. I like Hayden Hurst a lot, just because again, this is the game that I want to stack up the most, just based upon ownership and everything. So. Hunter Henry, I think, is okay. It's kind of weird. I feel like you could probably get away with a 2 tight end stack in that game. Playing a Waller Henry could be, it's going to be super unique. So I don't hate it. And I don't know if I'm going dirt cheap, probably Irv Smith at 2,900. So if they have to throw the ball, I expect Irv Smith to really have to run quite a bit of routes, and he's been there. They only threw the ball 14 times last week, but the weeks before that he had 5 targets and 5 targets. So probably not going outside of that. I got to throw out Mark Andrews' price at 4,800. Tambo, what do you do about your Baltimore guy here? Andrews at 4,800.
Yeah, no, I don't love him this week. Like I said, I just think it's Marquise Brown week. So, that's what I'm sticking with. I don't even know if he's going to get popular, but it feels like people are talking about him. He's going to get more steam by the end of the week. So I was with you on Henry, though, when you were there at 4,000 straight. That's sort of I like the opposite side of games. And you've got Waller, who everybody loves, and I like him as well. And I mentioned him with Carr. To be different with him, I like putting him with Carr, even though that's the natural stack. Most people are using Waller as the bring back for their Herbert lineups. So that's just one way to flip it. I do also like Henry, though, because people forget, but the Raiders used to be this funnel. And even it was just a couple weeks ago when Kelce was lighting them up, and Henry's no Kelce, but with a good quarterback, like Herbert, who we talked about already, and everyone in on Allen, you could either skip Allen and go to Henry. You could double stack with Allen to get it outside the box a little bit further that, people might not go that way, and then go the other side with Jacobs or Ruggs or something like that. Or like you said, if you want to go double tight end, maybe it's a spot to do it. It definitely looks like they both have a great matchup here, and people want to talk about them. But I do like Henry. I like Kelsey that you mentioned. I like Noah Fant at 4,600. That Atlanta matchup we've been bullying all season long. A lot of, like you mentioned, Judy talk. There's even, Deshaun Hamilton last week did something. Who else is there? Tim Patrick, if he's back, I think. So
he is back.
So there's guys that are going to get mentioned over there. And then I was already mentioned this earlier, but I like Irv Smith at 2,900. I think that's a way to go. I guess the last one would be maybe Kirkwood. Your thoughts? What about Greg Olsen or Will Dissly for Seattle, just to get unique within that game? They're both really cheap, though. And if you got the Tre'Davious White fears that everyone might have, you could go with like Lockett and Dissly with Russ and get out cheap and have John Brown or Diggs on the other side. What are your thoughts on that?
I like Will Dissly. So, Greg Olsen is trending downwards, right? Like he sucks. Like, did you watch him? He grimaces on like trying to make a catch, like in complete pain. It's like really, really sad. So it's like the season's going on and he's breaking down, which is to be expected, right? Like we didn't even think much of him coming into this season. So Will Dissly has been running more routes, and so he's trending upwards, right? And so Olsen hit the injury report this week. Limited practice on Thursday, I believe. Is that correct? I think that's correct. So I can get behind a cheap Dissly for sure, 2,700. But like you're reaching, right? Like with any of these guys. But like, and then who was the other one? Did you say someone else?
We were talking about Irv Smith down there. I'm not sure if you like him, but
yeah, I can't. I mean, it could happen, right? Like it could always happen. But like, I just think like there's only so much opportunity against like Detroit, and you've got Cook back, who's gonna just they're a run first team, and then you've got Jefferson who's emerged, and you've got Thielen. It's like
the more I look at it, I think like the $1,000. I know that's a lot of money in the general grand scheme of things, but when you spend that $1,000, you get a Hunter Henry, a Hayden Hurst, a little bit more gets you a Noah Fant. Like pick up some upside. You don't have to completely drop down. I don't think it's like Irv is like a slam dunk down there at that price. Dissly, I only really like down there because of the stacks that you can make up with it, but I guess that would be the same argument for Smith. I just know we've seen Dissly have a few good games in the past, and you mentioned the Greg Olsen stuff. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, tight end's kind of gross except for those kind of higher end options. So I don't know. I mean, you can play any of these guys, but whatever.
Curious, like if Ridley's out, who would be the guy that you think benefits the most?
Maybe Gage, maybe Russell Gage.
Could be Hurst. It could be. I mean, it's Julio, but it could be Julio, Hurst.
Didn't we say like that? Olamides is kind of behind Julio, and then who's the other guy that's kind of behind?
There's Christian Blake and there's Russell.
Yeah, and Blake. Yep, and Blake is behind. So Blake runs the routes, but I don't know. Like Hayden Hurst seems to be like another great option because Julio, it seems like always is double coverage in the red zone, right? So maybe Hurst
is like he never gets anything extra. He does, like if you look at his numbers even and across the season, he's no matter who's in or out, he's sort of just always the same role. So I don't see. It's not that he's a bad play. He's 4,100. I think it's a good price. I think it's a fair, like I just talked about, with the upside you get from going up from a guy like Irv Smith. So I really wouldn't use Irv or Dissly outside of those game stacks. But I'm saying if you go up to Hurt, like I like your call better on like a Blake and risk it, or like a Gage where he's a little bit overpriced. I would rather take a shot with one of those guys to get unique than I would just play a standard Hayden Hurst play.
Okay. Because I've been stacking this game every which way. So
I don't mind Hurst. 7 targets last game. Ridley out. He just got to like. It's like there's a lot of variance there with the end zone, but if you can get that kind of production and find the end zone, then he could. That's a smash, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely play him. I just say like I don't think we were talking about whose role changes because of this.
Sure.
I don't think his role changes at all. I think he just does what he normally does, and that's why he's a decent play at 4,100. I like your Blake call, though, at 3,000. Like I said, I think that's another guy. You're looking for a cheap wide receiver. If he ends up getting 7 or 8 targets here, it's just like when Olamide got the game after Julio was out, and everyone was like, who is this guy? It's too late. You already missed the boat, right? It's already gone.
Right. Yep.
I like that call.
Stacks?
Yeah, take it. Let's take it home with some stacks.
Okay. I'll throw out just the Denver Atlanta stack. I'll just do a Drew Lock to Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, and then I'll bring it back with Julio. So all those guys I think we have basically at 10% or less ownership. So after that, you're going to be pretty unique with that stack. I think you can go somewhat chalky with the rest of your team.
I mean, mine, the easy one for me, it's probably going to be chalky. Josh Allen to John Brown, just because of price with Tyler Lockett. And trying to think of a lower owned one. I mean, I like chalk again. I like Mahomes again. I don't know how chalky Mahomes is going to.
I don't think it's chalky as you think.
Yeah.
Like you said, you mentioned it earlier about having all these quarterbacks back on the slate. Look, I'm looking at it here. It's Murray, it's Wilson, it's Watson, it's Allen, it's Lamar, it's Herbert. Listen to all these guys. And then some value plays like Brett mentioned there with Drew Lock and guys down there, and even Carr. So I like your call with Mahomes, but who are you putting him with? What's your favorite stack?
Tyreek, man.
Break the slate. There you go.
And you bring it back with McCaffrey or Curtis Samuel. Gadget guy, Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite?
No one's gonna play him.
Is that your favorite stack on the that game environment? That's where you.
I what's not to like about a 31 point.
I just think it's the
total.
ownership of the KC guys coming off of their monsters.
I don't think they're gonna get ownership. I think we just at least Tambo and I don't think they're gonna get much ownership.
I don't think as much as what everybody else thinks. There's just too many other ways to go. It really gets dispersed. It's kind of like I always talk about a PGA. When you got a big event with all these good players, the ownership just gets dispersed enough. It's not like last week where it was so congested. It's going to be the same thing here. So yes, they'll all have a number on them, but that's fairly shared across the board. But it's not something that I would really shy away from too much in many spots. We don't see the 40% owned guy or the 30% owned outside of running back, but even then it's pretty dispersed as of right now. So
I mean, at RG we don't have a guy over 20% right now, and I kind of right there with you.
All right, I think that's enough.
Oh, I got mine.
I mean,
sorry,
Herbert. Like I don't. I mean,
yeah, I'm on Watson,
chalky.
Fuller, LaVisca. I like that one. You can mix in Cooks as well. Mix in Robinson if you want, and then Herbert. You talked about. I already mentioned. I like Allen and Henry, and then bring it back on the other side with a guy like Ruggs. I'm good with that. And then Mahomes, we're just sticking to it. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. Just use them with whoever you want, especially if Watkins is out. Hardman, Robinson, Kelsey, Hill, all those guys are in the mix there. And you've got CMC, who we talked about being overlooked on the other side, Robbie Anderson. And you'll probably get there with that fish play, Curtis Samuel, but I'll stick with the other guys. I don't want to see that happen. I promise.
No,
you that.
that's the way to the fish play is the way to get completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
and he's good. Like there's so many different ways to use that guy. Like it just makes sense, especially with the way that the Chiefs have been playing against the pass. It's like they're like Moore and Robbie Anderson are no gimmies in this game, even though they're going to be extremely popular.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing that I would want to throw out there too in the Seattle Buffalo stacks. You guys were talking about the tight ends a little bit, but David Moore, I think, is a great cheap piece. If you're in belief that DK Metcalf kind of gets, that shadow treatment by Tre'Davious and kind of gets shut down, I think David Moore can definitely have a few monster catches in that game. It was 3,100 on DK.
All right. So that should be a wrap. Is the election over now? I mean, man, what a tough scene for all these Trumpers out there, huh?
Let's not
They
get
can't,
too
they
political.
can't, they can't take an L.
It's true,
And,
man.
so I want to give a shout out to my boy Zaz, and who's been with me for the election. I just wanted to close the show out with making sure if Hollywood Brown goes off and Hollywood Brown hits those overs on those props, give my boy Justin a follow at RIPJKS. Big time sports bettor, huge actually, really sharp guy. All right, any final words, you guys?
Nah, I like it.
It's all good.
All right, it's been the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast, and we'll catch you next week.